Hello, hello, hello. It's Stephanie here. Welcome to episode 90. Oh, this is episode 91 of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. And today's episode is an exciting one. It's all about property development, that strategy that's always seen as quite sophisticated, advanced. And Mark Lloyd is here today to explain how beginners can get started in property development. I think it'll be a really useful conversation for you all. Mark recently came to speak at one of our private Rent to Rent Superstars events, and we had such great feedback that I knew that I really wanted to ask him to come onto the podcast as well. So, Mark has been in business for over 32 years and he's been a property investor for over 16 years. So, he's been experienced in every strategy going. He's co founder of the Property Masters Academy, which specializes in mentoring newer investors. And he's CEO of Max Property Group, an international real estate company that provides bridging finance for property projects through their crowdfunding platform. So it's amazing to have you on the show, Mark. Welcome, Mark Lloyd.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for the welcome. Really nice to see you again.
Yes, yeah. Well, Mark and I co-host one regular Clubhouse room, and Mark's also got his own room. So we've gotten to know each other a little bit more on Clubhouse. So before we dive into this development business, Mark, I'd love for you to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit more about you.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, I've been around quite a long time, and I'm often asked actually, why am I still doing stuff? Because I did retire about 10 years ago when we sold our last company, and I think I kind of narrowed it down over the years as to what the reasons why I keep going. Apart from the fact I love what I do, but a lot of it I think is down to my childhood and the environment I was brought up in. And it wasn't a pleasant experience, to say the least. I was brought up in a broken family, so I was my mother left when I was 2, and my father remarried when I was 4. I was at the wedding. How many kids could say they were at a parents' wedding? Not that many. At least my dad. And so I was the eldest boy, and then there were 3 more boys born in that marriage. And whilst I didn't appreciate it as much at the time, when I look back on the things that happened, I was treated differently. I wasn't part of the family, for want of a better word. And there's lots of things that stuck in my mind. I have an extremely good memory from my childhood, which a lot of people don't have, but I have because of the childhood I was brought up in. And I remember most things literally from about the age of 2, 3, because I do remember crawling. I do remember living in a slightly different house to where I was brought up, and later on in life I was told where that was. So it all came to light. And I think because I was treated differently, and those things said, I mean, one of the things that stuck in my mind and still does to this day is that I would never be good at anything. Be it absolutely, I was a waste of space. That I would never actually be good for anything, and that kind of stuck in my mind, and that's kind of affected my whole life to date. And when I was at school, I had part-time jobs because my stepbrothers were getting pocket money and I wasn't, and okay, what do I'd like some money too. I'd like some pocket money to buy sweets as kids do, or cakes or whatever. That's what you buy, isn't it? So I got paper round and a couple of other jobs. By the time I was 15, I had 4 jobs, and that's on top of doing my GCSEs or O levels at the time, which I got ended up with 9 of those. I then went on to do my A levels. I was working part time in Tesco's of a Thursday, Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and do my A levels as well, which I got 4 of those. And I was going to go to university, but I just needed to get out. I needed to earn money, and I needed to get out of home. And whilst I could have done that with university, I couldn't have earned the money. So by the time I was 19, I was only more than double my dad, and that was kind of left a kind of uncomfortable situation at home. So I left home, moved up to Brixton in London, lived there with a guy for a period of time, and then moved up to North London in Wood Green, and this was really, I moved up to London because my job was there. My very first job, well, actually my second job, my first job was in a garage, just being the person behind the till and pressing the button. Yes, you can fill up now. That kind of stuff. That bit of power, you can press the button. You're allowed to have petrol in your car now. That's my very first job. My second job was in a bank, and in the West End, just down from the American Embassy, which is where I was based. And I was there for a couple of years, and I got transferred up to Liverpool, and I was transferred to after that to Ashford of Middlesex, and I was transferred to Farnham in Surrey. And I'd progressed. Every transfer I did, I'd progressed up the chain, if you like. And I was a manager by the time I got to Farnham. I just had enough at that point, and I left. And ever since, I've been self-employed. I've done a number of things. Lost quite a lot of money along the way as well. Lost just about everything at one point in time when I split up with my wife at the time, and she got custody of my daughter. And it got to quite a low point where I literally couldn't even rent anywhere because my credit was smashed to pieces. And it was at the time when interest rates, because you're too young to remember this, but when interest rates got to 15% plus, and you had to work so hard just to pay the mortgage and the rent. So, but luckily, I'd started a company at that point with a friend, and that friend allowed me to stay at his house where to live. So that was kind of the lowest point of my life. And eventually I managed to get somewhere to rent, but it was very, very hard. And then from there, kind of things built up, and we set up another couple of companies. In fact, to date, I think since that time, I've set up about 6 companies. I've sold 2 of those. One was a central heating company, one was a telecommunications company, but we also had an IT company, we had a telephone number company, and obviously got a couple of property companies as well now. The other ones have gone by the by. The last one we sold in 2009 was our telecommunications company, which was probably the nearest I've ever got to passive income, because I don't think property is passive. I think it's more work than people realise, but it's got fantastic benefits. But the telecommunications company was passive. I could go on holiday for a month at a time, didn't matter. It didn't matter when I went away, the income, because as long as our clients were using the telephone, we were getting paid. People's usage today, everyone's on the mobile phone all the time. If we'd kept that, we still had income coming through.
Yeah.
But like most people, we kind of thought, well, we need money to start property, and something had happened in the telecom company at the time. We'd lost quite a big client, and it kind of gets to the back of that things happened, and we were toying with selling the company. And Jackie got invited someone in to value the company, and we walked out the meeting kind of out with our chins on the floor, thinking, "Oh, is it really worth that much?" So it wasn't a massive amount of money, don't get me wrong, but at the time it felt like a lot of money, and so we sold the company, and the sale went through really quickly. But at the similar sort of time, I had a letter through from the Rich Dad Education Company inviting us to a property seminar, and said to Jackie, "Do you fancy going along? This could be our next thing. If you want to do it with me still, we'd run all these companies." It was like always like when we sold the telecoms company, it was like an end point for us, possibly, that we could have gone our separate ways. But we decided to go to this property seminar, and like 15 minutes in, we were hooked. We were doing this. Signed up to their 3-day event, and then we went on to the Wealth Builder program, and we actually became mentors with Rich Dad organisation very early on. I was a bit kind of shocked by that, because being it's not new to business, very new to property, and I was 10 months in, invited to become a mentor, and I thought, well, hang on a second, I don't know anything. I've only been doing this 10 months, The way they operated, it was very much get new people in, teach the new people as far as they've gone. Don't get me wrong, by month 10, we'd had 14 properties, so I mean, we were doing pretty well. But I didn't feel qualified, and 6 months later, we left the Rich Dad people, left them alone, so we're going to just go concentrate on building our portfolio. And people started following us, and Facebook wasn't quite fully active then, so we had there was Google Groups, And a lot of people were asking, where's Mark gone? Because I was one of the few mentors that actually answered people's questions. So they then got my email address, and I was getting all these emails every day from people seeking advice. And I thought, okay, I'll just deal with those, And it got to such a stage where I was getting over 200 emails a day from people that I just couldn't deal with. So I said to Jackie, why don't we just put on a 1-day training event? We just called it a Property Mastermind Day. Just said, look, invite people along, and we're going to limit it to 30 people, because one of the things that with Rich Dad Organisation, when you went to a training seminar, there was 200 people there. And all you got was, that's a really good question. If we haven't answered it by the end, come back to us. Your question never got answered. So we did this 1-day event, and it went down really, really well. And at the end of it, people were asking, that's fantastic, when are you doing the next one? And we hadn't planned another one. So after that, we then did one a month for this next year. For just purely, it was a low-cost event. We included lunch, because that's one of my bugbears. We paid £40,000 to Rich Dad Organisation, and we never ever got lunch.
Wow.
So we had to make our own tea, but we never just.
Blimey, that's crazy.
Yeah, really annoyed me. So we made sure that lunch was right in. And then after about a year doing it, I was on holiday one year and with the kids and so on, and in southern Spain. And when I was with my then partner, she always used to take my mobile away and put it in a hotel safe. I know.
Wow.
So I'd get a notepad from the local shop, notepad and pen, and I'd just make notes. Anything that come into my head, I'd make notes. And I decided to write a business plan whilst on holiday for the training company, for Property Master Academy. I came back from holiday, just said to Jackie, look, are we going to continue doing this training stuff? And if we are, we're going to do it seriously. And here's my plan. Or if not, we'll forget it and we'll just go, continue with our property journey. And so why don't we do both? So that's kind of how that kind of developed, if you like.
Well, I really appreciated that, Mark. I like the fact, well, there was so many nuggets in there. One is that you were so hardworking from a young age, and that you had that drive. There might have been, I suppose there's I was going to say a cloud in every silver lining, but I mean a silver lining in every cloud. That it was unfortunate. It sounds awful, the way that you were treated growing up, but it did light that fire of ambition in your belly, and you had 4 jobs, you got 10 O levels, I think it was, and then four A levels, and then went on to out earn your father by the time you were 19, doubled his income. And I just want to give you kudos, because that's all phenomenal. And I also wanted to point out, I don't think I'm as young as you think. I think I'm a similar age to you, Mark.
No, you can't possibly be.
Yeah, well, let's come out with it. I'm touching up on 50 this year.
I'm 61.
Okay, well, that's not a huge difference.
Not a huge difference, no.
So I think I was here when we had the high interest rates.
Okay.
I might have not been investing though. Let's go into development, because the thing that really intrigued me, that was different about your perspective on it, was you talk about how property development can be for beginners. So let's just start at the very basics. When you say property development, Mark, what do you mean?
Well, property development covers quite a broad area, and it's probably one of the more complex strategies, which is what tends to put a lot of people off, apart from the money aspect, which we can talk about in a minute. But it is literally, development could be considered a refurbishment. That's development in its smallest kind of form, all the way through to new build and land, and everything in between. So commercial conversions, airspace development, where you're building on top of existing buildings, where you're reconfiguring a building, all those kind of things is development. Title splitting is development, because you're maximising the value of the property, and that's really what it is. It's more about maximising the value of what is there that wasn't there previously. Whereas obviously on the rental side, you're just maximising it in a different way from a rental perspective. But here we're looking at capital values only, and I think that's kind of the broad spectrum, and you can add extensions onto that, because that again should add value in most instances to a property. So there's lots and lots of different ways of doing it, and I think I firmly believe that new investors can do it, and we've proved it already. So I know that new investors can actually start with development.
So let's talk a little bit about what are the benefits of doing development, and then we can go on into some beginner examples.
Yeah, sure. So I think the way I look at development is that it's actually a relatively quick way of building a rental portfolio as well. Because if you follow the stuff that we teach, then you're going to be looking at bigger projects than you would do normally. As for a rental portfolio, it's individual properties, generally speaking, when you're starting, and then you perhaps progress to larger buildings, blocks of flats, or commercial buildings that you can convert to residential, those kind of things. But here we're starting with that. And if I give you an example, so my colleague Andrew, who's one of the mentors on the development team, he bought a block of flats about 2 years ago, 14 flats. All he did was he reconfigured and refurbished. So reconfigured, what I mean was it was 14 one-bed flats. They were large one-bed flats. He changed them into 14 two-bed flats. Oh, no, sorry, 7 two-bed flats, and kept 7 as one-bed flats. So it was a fair mixture. And I just reconfigured the rooms so that they were laid out better. And he decided to keep those, but that took 9 months. So 9 months to get 14 properties. Now, I did that from scratch, buying individual properties, but not everybody can do that. And that's hard work, buying 14 individual properties. It's actually less work buying a 14 property block of flats than it is buying 14 individual properties. So that's just one example where you can actually build a portfolio, and you've got that product at the end of it. You can either sell it, or sell part of it, keep part of it, or keep all of it. Because when you refinance at that point, if you've done your figures correctly, that will be a no money left in deal.
Wow, that sounds hugely attractive. And it's something that I've talked about on the podcast before, the magic of multi-unit blocks. And the other exciting thing about it is that the per unit price of each unit tends to be lower when you buy in a multi-unit block. Now, I know that you're saying this was one of Andy's deals that you're talking to us about. Do you know, are you able to tell us the figures, purchase and GDV, etc.?
On that one, I don't know off the top of my head what it was. I know he ended up keeping them and refinanced out without using any of his own money, by the way.
Perfect. So how was it? Well, I know we're going to come on to financing later, but let's just use this as an example. How did he finance the project?
So for this one, he got 10 joint venture partners who each put in 50,000.
Right.
And the reason this happened, he had finance arranged, and this was around about December time, a couple of years ago, and the bank decided in the middle of December to withdraw the loan.
Wow.
A week before he was due to complete.
Oh my gosh.
So he just had 1 week to raise the £500,000. And raising £500,000 sounds like a lot for one person, definitely. But when you've got 10 people putting £50,000, much, much easier. Or 20 people putting 25,000, whichever. And that's what he did. He just went all out and got the money within a week. So it showed, with the right motivation,
yes,
he was clearly motivated. You can do these things.
Well, while you've been talking, Mark, because my mental arithmetic's not great, I've got my calculator out, and kudos to Andy for getting the money together, and that's the power of experience and having a team and network of people around you who trust you and want to work with you. But I got my calculator out, and I put 500,000 into 14, and £36,000 per unit, which is crazy. Where in the country are we?
It's in the south.
what? I mean, I'm not asking you for the street name, but what
No,
kind of
it's in Somerset.
in Somerset? Yes. So, oh my gosh, that's like us in Newport. I'm always talking about the units that we got, £32,000 per unit, but over in Somerset, you got £36,000 per unit on 14 units. And I'm sure, obviously, you don't have the figures to hand because it wasn't your deal, but when you refinance that, when you've gone from 14 one beds to 7 one beds and 7 two beds, that would have been a considerable uplift. You've got all your money out. So then you're getting this 14 unit cash flow with no money left in. So phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up. What I would love to talk about, because there'll be people listening and thinking, okay, well, that's all very well for Andy and other people like yourself, Mark, who are very experienced in property and in this strategy and in business, and you've got access to these type of investors. But maybe it'd be useful if you could give a case study of perhaps one of your mentees who started out without their own money, who got started in development, of the type of project that they did, and also the type of way that they financed it.
Yeah, sure. I can give you 2 examples. So our very first mentee that decided to do straight into development was a couple of years ago. And we didn't think any of it at the time, but he just wasn't interested in doing a rental portfolio. He didn't want to have anything to do with tenants at all. So now Simon had a lot of money. Okay, he could easily go and buy something cash, develop it, sell it, no problem. He could do that a few times. But because what we'd said to him is, well, don't use your own cash. Okay, because one, you'll become lazy because you think, oh, well, that's only another 10 grand. Like I can do that. But if you're using somebody else's money, that's a big difference. So he actually went out to get joint venture money and borrow as well. Now, borrowing as a new investor, a new developer, is actually not that difficult because it's not you that the lender is looking at so much. They're looking at your team. So Simon, on his first project, took him 18 months, but he made £250,000 profit.
Wow.
Now, more recently, we've got one going through at the moment for a guy called Richie. He's on the development program. He's literally been in it 6 weeks. He's got his first deal. That's costing him £380,000. Block of three flats, yeah. And we've allowed a time frame of 6 to 9 months on this. And by the end of it, he will have made between £80,000 and £100,000.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry. Oh, £80,000 and £100,000. That's what you said, is it? Yeah.
So within 9 months. Now, Richie is a new investor. He'd been on a couple of other training programs, hadn't got very far. And I said, well, look, this is different, and I'll tell you why. So he joined us. He's got his first deal within 6 weeks. And that's just going through. We're actually helping him raise the money on that through our crowdfunding platform as well, which means he will have very little money to put into it, if at all. So
that's a very important point. So we'll talk about Richie and then come back to Simon. So Richie purchased the property for 380,000, and the funds, was it the crowdfunding you raised for the purchase, or is that for the development?
We do it for both.
And so using your crowdfunding platform, he was able to work with you to obviously find out how to analyze and structure the deal, and presumably you checked it all over for him. And then when he was ready to raise the money, then he was able to post onto your crowdfunding platform. Is that how it works, Mark?
Yeah, that's kind of how it works, yeah.
And now it's going to go up 80 to 100K. So what are you changing, Mark, with these 3 flats?
So all he's doing here is a slight refurb and a title split, because they're all under one title at the moment.
Slight refurb and the title splits. Yeah. And then he's going to sell them.
Yeah.
I love it because I love the simplicity of it. And I think the sticking point for people is often the finance. It's the expertise, obviously, on analyzing, knowing when is a deal, and all of the things to look out for. That is part of it. But then what puts people off is as well is the finance. So I think it's very interesting or very useful for your mentees that you also have that access to the crowdfunding platform. If people do want to know more about the crowdfunding, because I know, where would they go, Mark?
They can either contact me, or they just go straight to the website, which is maxcrowdfund.com, and register.
Okay, great. maxcrowdfund.com.
Yeah.
And
All UK inquiries come through me anyway.
so Mark is on Instagram, and his handle, if you're watching on the video, you'll see it's at Mark Lloyd Property. And if you're listening on the podcast, it's also at Mark Lloyd Property. You can go to renttoRentSuccess.com/91, and the link will be there as well. So you mentioned Simon's deal, and because I'm nosy, Mark, I want to know what he did, because he's made 250k in 18 months. And what kind of project was that? How did the uplift come about?
So that was just converting a large house into 4 flats.
Ah, that's phenomenal as well. Was he selling?
Yeah, selling. Yeah. And the attraction here was they were on the seafront.
Oh, phenomenal.
Your
Yeah.
views straight out to the English Channel.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds incredible. So, Mark, where are people going wrong? What are the biggest mistakes people make when they're getting started in development, perhaps trying to DIY things?
I think, well, one, they try to make the figures fit the deal. Yeah, always wrong, as you know, in investing. And that's one of the good things that we do is we check every deal before it goes forward. And of course, as we're probably going to fund a fair number of these through our crowdfunding platform. The crowdfunding platform won't lend unless the deal is working either. So, it's got to hit certain parameters. And generally speaking, for anybody that's listening, what you're looking for is a minimum 20% margin. Okay, as long as you've got the 20% margin in there, you should be able to get funding. And I think the two areas that most people worry about is I don't know enough, and where do I get the money from? And we've covered both angles. I think our kind of strap line for the mentorship was we'll help you find it, fund it, and build it. Because if you can find it, we'll show you what to find. We'll show you how we'll fund it, and we'll show you how to build it. Because what is really important to develop, unlike building a residential portfolio from individually, where it's really you that the lender is looking at, on development, it's not so much, depending on what the type of development is, it's the team you're using. So, for example, if you're going to do, so we've got a commercial conversion that we're in the middle of negotiating at the moment, which will be to convert this building into about 40 flats. Now, clearly, I'm not going to do the work. I don't have experience of building 40 flats.
Yeah.
So the contractor we use has got to have previously done something similar.
Yes.
And it's the contractor that the lender is interested in. So you as a developer essentially become a deal maker, that's all. And it's knowing how to put the various members of that team to work to your advantage.
Yeah, I love it. And it's something that as relatively new developers ourselves, we're 5 years in, we've got developments where we have already bought them as multi-unit blocks, and we've just been uplifting them and slightly reconfiguring them or finishing off a conversion, that sort of thing. But we're doing the one at the moment where it is a conversion of a commercial into 4 separate flats. And the build team is so important, as you said, because that's where the skills are. The build team and the project management, we've chosen to have them separate. But what I'm trying to say in a very long-winded way is that it certainly is something that is open to beginners. But I want to ask you, Mark, because obviously development spans a lot of different things, as you were explaining at the beginning. What kind of development projects do you think really suit, let's say, the average beginner who doesn't have a huge amount of previous property experience?
Well, I'm a firm believer of thinking big. I think one of my mentors that I had for a short period of time said to me, "Think big or go home."
Mm.
And so I think I'll give you an example. So we've got a young lad called Dan. He's on the mentorship at the moment. Now, his whole mindset, and this is often the problem we have to get over. The initial bit is the mindset. So he came onto the development mentorship. He said, "Look, I've only got, I think it was £35,000 available." So in his mind, he said, "Well, therefore that means I can only buy a property for whatever 250,000, let's say." He put in an offer last week on a building for 2.5 million.
Wow.
Because we've now expanded his mindset to realize actually the 35,000 he's got, whilst it's great to have some money, is irrelevant. If we can make the project work, that's what's important, and then we find the money.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And how are you funding that one, just out of interest, Mark?
So, well, assuming we don't know if it's been accepted yet, but if it's accepted, it will be through the crowdfunding platform initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably with that one, we might need some private investors as well to top it up.
Great. Well, I love how it's like a jigsaw, isn't it? You put the puzzle pieces together to create the whole thing, and you've got to have all the pieces of the puzzle, and you've got to know how to put them together, which is where you come in, really. It's been fascinating hearing about all this today, Mark. Now, are there things that you would have loved to have shared today that I haven't asked you about development that you think are important?
I think, as I was saying to your group the other day, that really it's positive mindset, can-do attitude will get you many, many places. And that's really what it needs. I think don't be frightened of development. Don't be worried that, that's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money, but you won't get that money if the deal doesn't work. It's as simple as that. Whether it's us, our crowdfunding platform, where we lend, by the way, quite a lot of the percentage of the deal. We'll go up to 80% of GDV. So in most cases, that's nearly 100% of the money. But other lenders will be exactly the same as the way we view it. They just lend less, and they won't lend you the money unless the deal works. And this is the beauty about development. You're actually getting experienced eyes looking over it and say, actually, you know what, that doesn't work. Well, you've spent nothing at that point, so it's cost you nothing. But if it works, then wow, okay, the deal works. Now we need to get the deal put together and get the funding sorted and so on. So
brilliant. And I also want to point out that people can check you out at propertymasteracademy.co.uk. And I know that you have lots of resources over there. Mark, do you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so we run two main mentorship programs primarily. We do a couple of training courses here and there as well. We've never been much into training that much. We've got the development and we've got the rental portfolio builder, and that's really about it. So we focus very much on mentoring rather than training. So I'm a great believer in results. I mean, I in my life, I've seen lots of people attend many, many different training courses in property in particular, and a lot of people walk away having spent, £1,000, £2,000, £3,000 and do absolutely nothing. So all I want to do is focus on the people that want to do something, and we will get results. No question about that.
Absolutely. That's a phenomenal way to end, Mark. So if you're interested in, if your appetite's been whet for development, or if you're already involved in development and would like some more information, do visit the propertymasteryacademy.co.uk, or you can also contact Mark on Instagram at Mark Lloyd Property. And so thank you so much for joining us, for listening and for watching. And thank you, Mark, for joining us today and delivering lots of new insights on the world of development. Such an amazing world to be in. So, Mark, before we close, I just come to you for a last word of inspiration.
I think it just goes back to what I said earlier. Just like think big or go home, because you've got to think big if you want to make some money at this. Think big.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can make what you could make on 10, 20 or more projects, smaller projects in one deal
Mm.
for the same amount or even less effort and energy. So thanks again for watching and for listening. And it's been amazing to join you again this week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.